This is the 2017 Chevrolet Camaro SS. All new from the ground up. Lighter, smaller, smarter, faster. 6.2 litres, 455 horsepower, 455 pounds-foot of earth-shaking torque, 4.1 seconds to 100 kilometers per hour and a top speed of 266. This one's very special. It's the 50th anniversary edition, which only comes in seductive Nightfall Gray metallic with mesh grille and nifty 50 badging all over the car. It's superb, but today I want to look at the Camaro that first got me hooked. Boy, I wanted one of those so bad back in the 1980s when I was cool. Most excellent! And you know what? I was much cooler back then, so be gone. I'm really amped about this one because of all of the decades that we're covering in our 50 years of the Camaro, the 1980s was my favorite. It was mega! Okay, it started off in a recession and there were the usual troubles around the world. But it also brought back hope, optimism and confidence to its generation. We had computers at last. IBM's PC, the Commodore 64, the little Macintosh. We got Sony Walkmans and video games from Nintendo. And then there was the space shuttle. How cool was that? Meanwhile, nuclear Armageddon seemed to be off the table, and whilst yuppies made loads of money, we also got together to feed the world and had a banging concert to celebrate how righteous we were. And as for pop culture, where do I even begin or end? Michael Jackson, Madonna, Bon Jovi, Beastie Boys, Duran Duran, Whitney Houston? Put it this way, my 80s playlist is by far my biggest. And what about movies? E.T., Rain Man, Indiana Jones, The Terminator, Ferris Bueller, Back to the Future. The list is endless. And some of my very favorite TV shows ever are from this decade. Knight Rider, A-Team, Magnum, Quantum Leap, and let's not forget Miami Vice, after which I modeled today's appearance. So a truly fantabulous decade then. But were the cars as good? Like totally. I mean, just look at this baby. What a ride! It had a sleeker, more rakish look with a windscreen reclined more than any Chevy before at 62 degrees. It got a hatchback and drop-down rear seats. This was practically family-friendly. Lighter too, by over 200 kilograms, and in another first for Camaro, fuel injection. 172,000 were sold just in the first year. There was a 4-cylinder and a V6, but about half sold were V8s. A 305 motor, that's a 5-litre V8 putting out 145 brake horsepower at the start, but going as high as 230 brake horsepower over the next 10 years. The one to have was the Z28, or should I say Z28. It had a lighter bonnet and tweaked styling. It was ace, until the IROC-Z came along. Should that be IROC-Z? Named after the International Racer Champions, it got all the best bits of the Z28, plus better lower suspension, different wheels, tuned port injection from the Corvette, and serious attitude. In 1987, Chevy dropped a 350 cubic inch V8 motor into the IROC-Z. This 5.7 litre started off with 225 brake horsepower, but by 1992 had 245, which made it good for 0 to 100 in about 6.5 seconds. This particular IROC-Z from 1988 belongs to James Singer, and a couple of years ago he dropped an LS1 motor and transmission from a Lumina SS into it, endowing it with yet more horsepower. And I can confirm that this feels surprisingly eager for a car that's 3 decades old. Even the standard 350 was said by magazines at the time to have a herd of horsepower and mind-bending torque. Car magazines hailed it and even loved its handling. It had lowered and stiffened suspension, Delco Bilstein shocks, and stronger stabilizers and struts, including a Wonder Bar steering brace. Chevy had set these up like a race car, and most of them were drag raced at the time, which is why they're so hard to find today and very valuable. It feels big and butch and dramatic to cruise in, comfortable too, and cool. And you know what? Like the decade that brought it into being, it's bold and confident, sure of an even better future. Like the song said, the future's so bright, I gotta wear shades. Man, I really miss the 1980s, and I have to say, in the words of Doc Brown, I do feel we have to go back. But in some ways, this 2017 car does replicate the bold and forward-thinking character of that third-gen Camaro. And talking of forward-thinking, wait till you get a load of the 90s Camaro. Most excellent!
Too early.
Shahzad calling brain. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Out of all of the decades that we're doing for our 50th years of the Burger Chegger, 50 years of the Burger Chegger, and Delco Bilstein shocks and stronger stabilizers and struts. Struts. How is the hair for the bar? Honest opinion. Sorry, I've got it now anyway. Okay, I'm gonna forget that one a few times. Got that wrong. That last bit was completely wrong. Like totally. And then what was it? Like totally? Just as long as the sweat isn't causing the color to run out of my hair.